Speaking of Georgia, Jessica Stokes, who's a new member of Crimson Ghost Blue, is going to share some of her experiences on the ground as a volunteer working on voter protection in Georgia during the 2020 general election. Welcome, Jessica.
That's right. Thank you. And unfortunately, I wish I worked full-time as a political activist, but I, like many of you, am an ordinary citizen. And so I'm going to share my experiences as a volunteer doing voter protection in Georgia in the 7th Congressional District, supporting Carolyn Bourdeaux, who was the only Democrat to flip a House seat from red to blue in 2020. And Carolyn's 2018 campaign had experienced pretty much every voter suppression tactic that Kathleen just mentioned and more. But I guess the silver lining of that experience was that her team learned what to watch out for, both after the 2018 campaign as well as her June 2020 primary. So they were impressively organized to protect the right to vote on November 3rd. And I arrived at my assigned precinct before dawn in my stay in line t-shirt. I wish, like Jason, I had worn it so I could have done the reveal. I had my stay in line t-shirt. I had cases of water and snacks to hand out and a clipboard full of pre-printed affidavits to document multiple scenarios if there were any shenanigans. However, as it turned out, at our location, there were no lines, no issues. It seems that everybody really had voted early or by mail. So I wondered if my trip down to Georgia had been worth it. And then my phone rang at 10 o'clock on election night as I was watching results come in. And there was a scanning issue with about 80,000 ballots in Gwinnett County. And the Board of Elections was holding an emergency meeting. So Carolyn's team needed someone to get to the Board of Elections right away to find out what was going on. So I got there, I took notes, and I briefed the campaign manager when she arrived. I was there until 2 o'clock in the morning, and then the campaign asked me to return first thing next morning. And as you may recall, Georgia's results were not conclusive until Saturday of election week. There were issues all over the state with uncounted absentee ballots, provisional ballots, some of the electronic voting machines, ballots requiring adjudication by review panels. And I spent the next 3 days as a Democratic Party monitor at the Gwinnett Board of Elections, watching what was going on, asking questions, and reporting back to Carolyn's campaign. So if you live in Virginia and you were intrigued by Kathleen's call to action on poll watching and poll monitors, this may be my experience is a little bit of what you could have in for you. One of the things that was so fascinating was how critical it was to be in the building to understand what was really going on. Not everything gets shared. And so you needed to be there to watch and observe and listen and ask questions. I felt like an investigative reporter. I was chasing down election officials, asking multiple questions, the same question multiple times until I would get consistent answers. And although there were a few other Democratic monitors present, they were mostly representing the party, not one specific candidate. So they were mostly observing and they were moving around from district to district. I was the only one who was there consistently all day asking tons of questions that were being fed to me by the campaign. And so I spent a lot of my time briefing the other monitors as they came and went. Then I also observed the adjudication panels, which were really interesting. Each station had a team of 3 people, an election official, a Democrat, and a Republican from the district, reviewing every ballot that had produced an error and trying to determine voter intent. And in most cases, the voter intent was obvious. It was actually kind of funny. Like any extraneous marks on the ballot would cause an error. These were absentee ballots, so they were hand-marked paper ballots. And so some people would put a big X through Trump's name, but then fill in the circle for Biden. So it was pretty clear they were voting for Biden. And so the voter intent was often clear. And although it took a long time, the process felt very fair, and the review panels rarely disagreed, at least initially. As election week dragged on, the country started to get more and more interested in Georgia. And those of us on the inside knew that Gwinnett County was still sitting on about 20,000 votes, which could be enough to decide the presidential race and determine the Senate runoffs. So the Republican team was growing by the hour, and they were starting to get more and more agitated. And then they started challenging review panels and questioning ballot storage and process visibility and anything they could turn into an issue. So then the Democratic monitors were told to take careful notes about all the Republican complaints and what we heard people saying and what time they started to complain and had we observed anything, so that we could document all the issues in case anything ended up in litigation. Then on Friday of election week, it was at 5 o'clock was the deadline for provisional voters to cure or fix their ballots. So other people took over the Board of Elections monitoring while I knocked on doors all over the county, chasing down provisional voters, most of whom did not realize that they had one more step for their vote to be counted. And so we helped them get that done. And at the end of the week, I definitely felt as though the trip to Georgia had been worth it. And I can't wait to get back next cycle. And I hope some of you will join me.